Well, here we are. Welcome back, Geordie Armstrong, to I guess, the Geordie and Josh show, which has been on hiatus for quite a while, but for no real reason other than you're extremely busy and we just been having a hard time to make it happen. But it's nice to be able to talk again and catch up, and we're going to talk some pop culture stuff and maybe
Yeah,
some. How's our semester going? How are you doing today, Geordie?
good, good. How about you?
Pretty good. Yeah, it's nice to be able to do these again. I have people who are often asking me, when's the next one with Jordy? So I apologize for, trying to make it happen. It's like people are like, when's the next episode with Jordy? So let's get it out of the way. Um, so how's your semester going? We're almost at the end. Feels like it's could not come soon enough.
Yeah,
How's it been for you?
this semester has been rough. This has been a rough semester, which feels like every semester now. Last fall was really, really difficult. I've had great students this semester, but the semester, just the course load I have, and I don't know, other stuff. It's rough. Yeah, I'm I'm looking forward to it being done, but at the same time, I have really good students this semester, so I'm gonna miss my students. How
Yeah.
about you? How's your semester been?
Well, I have kind of split campus deal this semester, so I'm teaching at CSUN and City College. And quite honestly, it's been a lot of fun. I like it, but the commute is tough, right? The commute is like no way around that, teaching in person. But I like it because the classes have their own sort of feel and vibe and culture to them. So, it's going well, and I don't have as many classes as you, so I think that, for me, the grading is tough, especially when you have another job that you have to focus on. And so it's work, especially at the end of the semester. And Thanksgiving came a week later this year, it seemed like, I think. And so I'm always thinking, "Oh, I got a couple weeks after, 2 to 3 weeks after Thanksgiving, and now
No,
it's like 1 week, I think. So,
oh, we never do. We always just have one week of instruction and then finals week. So it's always the same deal after Thanksgiving. Yeah.
well, it definitely crept up on me this time because I was sort of thinking I had a couple weeks afterward, and this time, like, wow, I would wrap up right away. So
Yeah.
it's going well, and I teach in that new room, that lab, so that's pretty cool. And you're doing another study abroad because
Yeah,
you
yeah,
love it, right?
yeah,
So much fun to be out there with a bunch of kids.
yeah. Great.
Where are you going this time?
To Sicily. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And we'll see how that goes. I think it's gonna be my last one. So it study abroad is a lot of work. And I had really wanted to do it because I didn't do study abroad when I was a student, and I thought, I had wanted to do study abroad when I was a student, but didn't have the money. And so as an instructor, even better, you get paid, but man, it's a lot of work and it's not the fun work of teaching. It's a different kind of work altogether. So try it one more time and see how it goes. But I think it'll be my my second and last time. Maybe do a semester long eventually. Yeah. How about you? You could do a study abroad sometime.
Oh, that seems like way too much work for a part-time teacher at City College. It would be really cool. I think it would be nice to be able to take journalists to a certain area and practice, writing and see different parts of the world. I think they would love it, and it'd probably be life-changing for a lot of students. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll pitch that at some point. It could be fun. Obviously, in talking to you, it's a lot of work. But the big question, Jordy, if you're going to Sicily, is will you be going to the village that Sophia Petrillo grew up in?
Oh yeah, absolutely, of course. I have a little statue of her in my garden, so I'll have to pay homage to her, maybe bring back some dirt from her village, and place it around her statue outside. But yeah, absolutely. I thought you were going to ask me something about The Godfather. Um, but no, definitely do a Golden Girls recon out there.
Yeah. Well, I would imagine you're doing a lot of, you have a lot of great impact because a lot of people will never have that opportunity, or you will expose them and then they will later in life have a plan, a goal to sort of visit and travel and do it on their own. So I think that study abroad program's amazing, and it is very affordable for people. And there are some scholarships available, I would imagine.
Yeah, there are. Yeah, there's a lot. And yeah, doing study abroad through a community college is actually a great deal. It's much less expensive than if you went through UC. And anybody can do it who's finished a semester of college and has at least a C average and has a willingness to travel and learn. So, yeah.
So let's dive in and talk about some pop culture stuff because I'm always impressed by your analysis of the world and how things work or should be working. And I thought of you a couple of times recently with some things that are in the news. So I wanted to ask you about what's happening with the San Jose State University women's volleyball team. And so there's a trans woman who is on the team, and there's a lot of national controversy over this. There are teams that are forfeiting, they're just refused to play. And so now San Jose State University is advanced to like this finals, this championship. And so it sort of raised all these questions about trans men and women's sports and whether that's something that we need to address, whether we should be outraged. Obviously, there are women who, identify were assigned female at birth who are outraged by this. Not everybody, but there are some. What do you think of this, Geordie? Do you have any thoughts? Should biological men be competing in women's sports?
Wait, so the person who is on the San Jose team, they're trans female, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So as so I think that this is I know that this right now is a very controversial topic and it took up a lot of space in the last election. And it seems to be one of those things that people want to talk about, get fired up talking about, but we're talking about a tiny percentage of athletes. I mean, less than 1% really. And if you're pulling out your team because one athlete is trans female, what is that all about? Like, you really think that it's going to be that weighted because somebody had a little more testosterone when they were growing up? And there's such a variety of what it actually means to be trans female or trans male. When people start their transition, people can start transitioning now. And in the last election, the now president-elect made a big deal out of, he made up these stories about, going to school and having like a reassignment surgery on the fly. I mean, I couldn't even get Tylenol at my junior high when I had a headache, but apparently these days you can get like entire $70,000 packages. Um, but um, but yeah, those reassignment surgeries don't happen at that early age. But what does happen is you have people who start taking hormone blockers. So you can have trans women who didn't get the same amount of testosterone as somebody who grew up as biologically male. I think that that's one of the big arguments with having trans women as part of a sports team is that people argue that if you grow up with the same amount of testosterone as a biological male, then it might lead to earlier muscle formation, faster, et cetera, et cetera. All the things that we associate with testosterone and speed and strength. But that really varies depending on the person, just like with any athlete, just like with any person. Some people are taller, some people are shorter, some people have more testosterone, some people have less testosterone. I think that just fully pulling out of a division or fully pulling out of a game because there's one trans female is ridiculous. Um, I don't think that it has anything to do with what they're claiming, which is that it's somehow unfair. I think that it's kind of like how people make a big deal about trans women using bathrooms. It's never about bathrooms, just like it was never about bathrooms under segregation in the South. It's about demoralizing people and reminding them that they're in a position that can be demoralized. And so yeah, so I think for for the number of trans athletes there actually are, and for the amount of actual discussion that we have about it, it there's not a balance. There's not an even balance.
Yeah.
And there's not an even discussion of what it actually means to be trans female, what it means if you have taken hormone blockers, what it means if you have somebody who is biologically female and is 6 feet tall and has been lifting weights their entire life, you know, and not to go off on too much of a tangent away from being trans female, but the the argument that people are using when they're opposing having trans women on sports teams is that they're somehow genetically superior to biological women, cis women, right? And so that that argument in itself, that idea that somehow cis women are biologically and athletically inferior to cis men is in itself problematic because there are different ways that cis women are capable when it comes to athleticism, for example, endurance over actual physical strength, ability to build muscle. So there's that part of the discussion. If we're really going to create this argument that, hey, if you have a trans female on your team, it creates an imbalance without looking at the suggestion that you're essentially saying that cis women are athletically inferior to cis men, without looking at there's different types of athleticism and advantages depending on what your biology is.
Mhm.
But then there's also all kinds of other advantages that go beyond just what your biological sex is, right? The types of food that you have from a very early age. If you look at who gets to play tennis, for example, like tennis is one of those sports that gets a lot of people scholarships into Harvard, for example. Harvard is a big sports school. I know that people think that like Southern schools are the big sports schools. Harvard is one of the biggest sports schools that you can find in the US. And so if you want to get into Harvard, it's much easier to get into Harvard as an athlete than it is to get into Harvard on merit, right? But the kinds of sports that they have there are sports that if you excel in them, you would have to have a ton of money to actually be able to do well in them. So for example, tennis, right? So if you look at the people who are able to compete as I can't remember the different levels that you go through when you're younger and then teenager and then eventually in college.
Mhm.
But those different levels, your parents need to essentially be paying about $50,000 a year for you to be able to compete at those different levels.
Yeah.
So if we, look at those kinds of advantages, we're here like hyper focused on this one person who might have had a little bit more testosterone, which might have given them a little bit more muscle tone than other people. Meanwhile, what about the other advantages people might have when it comes to the kinds of training that they could have afforded, or all the other things that come with privileges that you can't necessarily see when you just look at an athlete, right? So yeah, so I don't think that it's actually about the trans woman. I think that it's about, just like I don't think that it's about bathrooms. I think that it's about demoralizing someone and taking a political position that reminds people that they're less than, right?
Yeah,
That's
I mean, I don't really have much to add there. You kind of went over it. I think that we do spend a very large amount, at least in our media, of time talking about these issues when it's not really on the minds of most people. And then occasionally something like this will blow up into a national story. It seems to me there'd be a certain amount of thrill in being a coach on the other side, if you're aware of this and if you're somebody who buys into that thinking that we're still going to win, we're going to have to coach differently, be strategic, we'll match up well. And I think like sort of quitting, just like we're not going to play them is the worst message to send because you punish people who are just trying to compete and participate. And we don't really know how it would play out if you're not challenging them. you know? So I think that that's kind of unfair. You end up hurting a lot of people over one person's decision. And I think each sport varies. You know, with volleyball, you've got a lot of people on the court. So it isn't as though one person can, I mean, I'm sure there's a volleyball person that would disagree, but there's more balance with a volleyball team than if it were hand-to-hand combat or something like that,
Yeah.
you know.
If
So
it were wrestling, if it were even baseball, where you have somebody hitting a ball, uh, even though it's a team sport, you have maybe like a hitter who's going to win the game for one team.
yeah.
But yeah, with something that's as evenly distributed as a volleyball, or a basketball team, or something that where you have all the players that really need to add to the game in order for you to have a winning team.
Mhm.
It just, to me, it just says this has nothing to do with having a trans female. This has to do with reminding her that she doesn't belong in female spaces, which is just silly. And why are we even spending our time with this? I mean, we have so many other things to worry about. This is just one of the many distractions that we see that was used very successfully in the last election to keep us from the things that we really need to focus on if we want to survive as a species. Climate change, for example, is one of the things that we should be all bothered about and arguing about and concerned about, but instead we're talking about one trans woman in the state of California on one team. Who
Mhm.
cares?
Speaking of, were you surprised on election night? Do you think?
Yes.
Mhm.
I was horribly surprised. I was actually trying to ignore it. I taught all day on Tuesday, and I was trying to not read any of the news because the last election and the election before, the the results had gone so late into the night, and it's so anxiety provoking. So my daughter and I had successfully uh, avoided any news, anything. We were watching Lost, and her dad texted me at like 9 o'clock, and he's like, "It's not looking good." And I was like, "Damn it!" And then I was up all night because then, as soon as he said that, I couldn't ignore it, and I didn't sleep at all. I slept maybe 2 hours. Yeah, I know that I'm naive or whatever, but I was surprised. I'm always surprised that I I know that people are like, oh, how can you be surprised? Of course, how can you be? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
A convicted felon over a prosecutor, over someone who can speak eloquently, who has people who say she didn't have a plan. What are you talking? She had so many plans. She had too many plans that people thought she didn't have any plans because she was so well planned,
Yeah.
right? I,
Are
it's
you one of these people who gets upset with someone who voted for Jill Stein? Or do you think like a third party candidate is throwing away your vote when Trump is on the ballot?
not in California. I mean, if you were in Pennsylvania, yes, I
Yeah.
would slash your tires, but
Yeah.
but in California, I mean, come on.
Didn't
It's yeah,
matter. Yeah.
yeah.
So another thing that's been like talked about, speaking of convicted felons, is and there's this whole documentary on Netflix that came out with the Menendez brothers, and this is kind of interesting because you and I grew up around that time when it was like a huge, shocking thing that these two brothers shot their parents to death, and at the time it was framed as they were greedy, they wanted more money, and they were going to get an inheritance if they killed them, and then they pretended it was like a burglar or something, and then eventually it came out. I think he confessed to a therapist or something, which I
Yeah.
guess it's one of those things that therapists can't keep private. But and
Yeah,
now though, with all of
that
this,
wasn't it. Yeah,
what's that? Yeah,
that wasn't it. But yeah, go ahead.
okay. And so with now all of this new info, I'm a journalist, I'm shooting for 90%, 85, 90, correct accuracy. But now there's talk of reducing their sentence. There was talk of maybe like having a new trial or something. What do you think? Do you think the Menendez brothers should be locked up for life, or should we give them another chance in light of the fact that I guess their dad was accused in some other documentary of possibly being inappropriate with a band member in Menudo back
Yeah.
then? So maybe it lends more credence to maybe this guy was a bad dad. What do you think of this?
I really hope they get out of prison, and soon. They should get out of prison. Well, they've been in prison for decades now, for like 30 plus years, I think. When that, I remember when that trial happened, it was a big deal because it was on court TV, and court TV was a new thing, and they didn't publicize trials like this. And it was salacious because there was the whole sexual abuse part of it, physical abuse part of it. Also, they were like multimillionaires, and the dad was in the music industry, and he like managed Menudo, and he managed some other big names at the time. So it had all the elements to keep people interested. And also they like shot their parents multiple times, I think 8 times, their mother like 8 times, and their dad they shot like through the face. But I watched that show, um, and it was so, so good. And I know it's a television show. I know that it's, not a documentary. I also watched the documentary though.
Hmm.
And I I think that they were I think that they were horrifically abused by their dad, their mother as well. Their mother was mostly indifferent, which is awful. It's
And more common than people want to admit.
more what?
More
More,
common.
yeah, absolutely. Um, and it's for me, like watching that show and really seeing their kind of the sort of many sides of how they were abused, but also they chose to shoot their parents, right? Like they could have left. Um, for me, it was just right on the edge of, I don't know how you would feel about it, but for me, it was like right on the edge of, you could you be a person who could like commit that kind of a crime if you're pushed that far, Like, is that something that's in all of us, or do you have a choice still, even at that degree of abuse? Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that probably when you're dealing with family, parent, child, because that's the most trusted relationship you can have, you're probably capable of some massive rage. Everybody is, if they feel that that trust is violated, maybe more so than even a stranger, because you have less expectations if a stranger harms you. And so,
yeah,
I mean, I would never be surprised, like, how could they do that, right? I mean, I think that if you are a victim of abuse for, decades or a couple decades or whatever, you snap, and then, anything is possible. I guess the question though is, did that happen or was it just their excuse? It's just what they said later, but sounds like you totally believe it.
I do, because of both the documentary and the way that the show represented it. The way that it was discussed, especially by the younger one, by Eric Menendez, it's not a feeling that you can make up, it's like game recognizes game. You can understand that kind of level of abuse, and you know that it it at that like the way that he describes it, especially, it rings very authentic.
Yeah.
So yeah. And so, you know, I whether they should have done any time at all, I mean, they've done a lot of time, and they should they've they've done their time without any hope of getting out, right? They had like no chance of parole. And the time that they've done in prison, they've been like excellent excellent prisoners. They've gone to school and they've led like different, you know, programs and uh, counseling groups and uh, lots of things that they wouldn't have had to do because it wasn't like they were trying to work towards parole
Right.
and show exemplary behavior. So yeah, I think they should just let them go and let them be at peace. I don't know if they'll, if those $15 million are still waiting for them at,
They still have it. Yeah.
at the end of the road. Yeah. But,
And I
yeah,
think that a couple of things, I think the first trial was sort of a hung jury, and then they had a second trial, and I believe the judge did not allow the allegations of sexual abuse.
yeah.
So in a
So,
case like that, what's a jury supposed to do? Like, if they don't have any reason to see a motive, then
yeah.
so that's a problem with our judicial system, our court system, when juries aren't able to see all the evidence for whatever reason.
Yeah, and so yeah, so in the first trial, it's a hung jury. They can't decide. The two testified and gave, you know, really explicit descriptions of the abuse that they endured with their dad, especially. And then they go back to jail, and I mean, they were held in jail for like 7 years. I mean, so before they went to prison, they were in county jail in LA County Jail from like 90 to 97. Um, and so they finally get another trial, but it's after OJ. So like their
Mm,
first trial is pre-OJ. And it's like I said, it's the first trial that's on court TV and it's, you know, this new thing. People are kind of tuning in and like I said earlier, it's got all the salacious details of sexual abuse and money and stuff that people want to hear. Um, but then OJ had happened, and that was this big circus with Johnny Cochran and Cato and like all the ridiculousness that went around that and the Bronco chase and everything. And the DA was the same person the entire time. And so I think that he wanted a conviction after OJ Simpson. I think that they didn't want like another big circus. And I think that they didn't want another person who or people who clearly had, I mean, because they had admitted to murdering their parents. I think that they didn't want another couple of people who had like committed pretty horrendous murders to just go free. So I think that was part of the reason that the judge didn't allow that evidence in, because it was a way of kind of guaranteeing a a guilty verdict, which is terrible.
and when you think about letting them out, I mean, it's you don't think they're going to get out of prison and go shoot people again. Like that's not what their crime was. They weren't serial killers or burglars, and they're not. It would appear that their homicides were specific to their parents for a certain reason. And I think aren't they married now, or one of them's married, or
Yeah, I think they're both married, and I think one of them, I think the younger one, has been married since like 98 or something. So, yeah. And you got to wonder about the people who marry someone who's never going to get out of prison, you know, marry someone in prison who's never going to get out of prison. I mean, I can kind of see the appeal, but
oh
it's,
man. It's speaking of the Golden Girls, it's like the episode where, Blanche has the pen pal with Merle, remember the prison inmate, and
yeah,
all of a sudden he gets out and she's like, "Oh, I never thought he would get out." But that's like a phenomenon though. Like lots of people in prison, they have pen pals, they fall in love, they get married, and do you
yeah,
think,
no,
I mean, I guess maybe they're thinking they're never getting out, but they bring some sort of assurance to that inmate, knowing that they have a partner, even if it's, in a limited capacity. So it is interesting. Like, what happens if you actually have to move in with your wife? What's that going to be
yeah.
like?
Yeah, I know. And I mean, people get like married and divorced, like completely inside prison. I think that the older Lyle Menendez has been married and divorced and then married again, like completely in prison.
Mhm.
Um, Yeah, I don't know. I don't, and it's, yeah, you're right. It's not a unique case for them. It's pretty common for I wonder if it's common for women. That would be an interesting study to see if female prisoners get married to strangers. I mean, to people they didn't know outside of prison at the same rate that male inmates do, you
Mhm.
know. I wonder if there's the same appeal for the other way around.
Christine, yeah. I think women tend to be a little bit more nurturing, and like poor Eric, poor Lyle, they need someone. They've been abused. Obviously men can be nurturing too, but I bet there's a majority of the men who get married, but I don't know, we can look it up. If we were on the Joe Rogan show, I could just tell my assistant, hey, pull that up, a statistic on the internet. Not that I watch Joe Rogan too much. Um, Speaking, let's see, I was going to go, the Menendez brothers documentary, the Jean-Benet Ramsey documentary is out, which I have not seen yet, but I did start part one. I think it's like 3 episodes. Are you going to watch that one? Are you interested in that one too?
That's a documentary or that's like a
It's a
show?
documentary. It's a documentary.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
And there's
yeah,
new evidence of, some unhoused individual in the neighborhood who they never investigated because they pinned it on the father and the mother immediately. That's like the news of this one. But does that case intrigue you at all?
that's where the parents killed the daughter, right? Like,
Well, they never found a conviction, but it was the one where there's a lot of evidence to suggest that because they, whoever killed her, wrote a ransom note and left it there, but they used paper that they had in the house, which strikes, like, why are you gonna use paper from their house? Wouldn't you use your own paper? And then they did a writing analysis and it matched the mom. And then the dad found her body there. So it's like if you're doing a ransom, aren't you supposed to take her? So
yeah,
there's a lot, but they were never able to they never arrested them. So and I think that it's a big mystery. I think a lot of the people feel the parents did it or the brother did it. It was an accident and they just pretended like
tried to
it's
cover it up.
yeah, but
Like her brother did it? Like,
yeah, her like I forget how old he would have been, but not a teenager yet.
oh, I see.
I think that's a theory too. He has denied that, of course, but I
Hmm.
think one of the theories is that something happened accidentally and they decided to make it look like something else. But that's another one that was like 30 years ago. It's like so weird. But that's a good thing about Netflix is they actually do get in all these documentaries, they have impact. I mean, if the Menendez brothers get out, right?
Hmm.
R. Kelly would not be in prison if it weren't for that documentary series on him.
Yeah,
Because all that stuff was already out. Everyone like knew about it. It had been reported on too, but
yeah.
once people see them and talking to them, and so there's so much of that that can definitely make a change. Okay, let's talk about positive media portrayals now. Are you going to see Wicked? I don't recall any movie getting this much publicity in a long time. Are you excited about it? Are you going to see it? What do you
No,
think?
I'm not gonna see it. I won't see I won't see it because so I read the book when it came out, and then there's a sequel, Son of a Witch, as well. Um, and then I saw the play, uh I saw the musical at the Pantages in LA. Um, but I won't see it because it's not even the whole play, it's not even the whole story. It's
Yeah,
just the first act.
yeah.
And then they're gonna come out with the second act and then the third act. Is that right? There's gonna be three, it's gonna be a trilogy.
I thought there were two, but you could be right. Yeah,
Even so, even if it's gonna be two, like I just won't see it on principle. Just like I wouldn't see The Hobbit. Like Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, some of my favorite books ever. Just life-changing books. Read The Hobbit in fourth grade, read Lord of the Rings the next couple of years, elementary school, junior high. I love those books so much. And when the Peter Jackson films came out, I saw the first Lord of the Rings 14 times in the theater, just in the theater. And I
That's
didn't,
impressive.
yeah. And that's not how many times I've seen it on video, right? But they took The Hobbit, which is the shortest book, and he turned it into three movies, and I won't see it because you can't take it's just for money. Like the only reason that you would do that is to make money off of it. So no. So I refuse to see Wicked because they are only splitting it up to make money. It's like 2 hours and 45 minutes for the first act. What are they doing? Because I've seen the
A lot of
play.
Jeff Goldblum.
The play is not like 7 hours, you know. So yeah, that it's to make money, and that kind of thing just is distasteful. So no, I won't see it. But Barbie had a lot of tie-ins. Like Barbie was when it came to marketing.
Yeah. Yeah, Barbie definitely did. And I I mean I could be wrong, but it feels to me like Wicked is bigger than that. It feels like the Titanic or something way back when that everyone was talking about that movie and had seen it two or three times. Um, but Ariana Grande, are you a fan? No,
Yeah,
you looking forward to that or seeing her? She might get nominated for Academy Award.
really?
That's an interesting. That's what they're saying.
That's good. I mean, yeah, she's good. She's seems like an interesting person. She seems nice. I don't know.
What did
I
you think of the musical?
I like the musical. Yeah, the musical was good. I like the book more. I mean, the book is really good.
Yeah.
Uh, it's his first book, so his whole thing was to take like side characters that were generally, evil characters, misunderstood characters, and like build a story around them. And uh, and I always like stories like that take like a misunderstood person and kind of turn them into. So he has like a book about the one of the stepsisters in Cinderella. He has a book about the lion in the Wizard of Oz. Yeah, he has a bunch of those. So I liked the book a lot. The book was great. The musical was good. Um, but yeah, I'm not going to see a movie that is stretching out to make more money. It's like when Guns N' Roses came out with that double album, uh, Use
Use Your
Your,
Illusion, one and
yeah,
two.
yeah, and they just did that to so that you would buy two albums instead of one. I
And
mean,
there were only like three good songs on both of the albums. Yeah.
there's no reason for that to be a double album. They had a bunch of filler in there and they had a couple of good songs and it was just so people would buy two albums instead of one album. Like that kind of stuff is just cheap. It's
Well, now
expensive.
will you see Moana too?
Yeah, I would like to see Moana too. I liked Moana 1. If my daughter will go see it with me because she's much older. She was
No,
of the age to see Moana when we saw Moana. Now she's, a teenager and in college. So,
no.
but if she'll go see it with me, then yeah, I'd like to see it. It's got The Rock in it again, right?
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah. Are you guys gonna go see it?
Yeah, I'm sure we will, but I think we're going to see Wicked first, only because um, I don't know, it seems interesting, and I guess after Spider-Man, the multiverse one, I don't know if you saw that. That ended the same way as the part two, and so that was like. But I want to see Ariana Grande because I love if like whether it's like 80s, 90s, 2000s, contemporary, I like pop, hip hop style, that kind of music. So
Yeah.
I think, and plus I'm kind of interested in seeing her go kind of like mainstream a little bit, like
Mhm.
they all do this, like Lady Gaga did this, like she was like crazy, marginalized, look at her fashion, her music, she's over the top, and then all of a sudden she's singing ballads with this power voice, and she's like this amazing mainstream superstar and winning Academy Awards. It's like or for songs, and it's like so. It'd be interesting to see if she can make that switch because there's so many singers who just kind of flop and
Yeah.
they fall. They don't continue to grow their career like a Madonna has or something like that. So. It's pretty cool. So another reason I thought of you recently, Geordie, is I heard "Do They Know It's Christmas Time?" And as any true follower of our shows knows that we have a affinity for George Michael. I think mine is greater than yours, though, but I'm not sure. No, can't be. All right, close tie. But so anyway, the song's out. It's the 40th anniversary, so they've done this like what do they call it, mashup, remix, because they've done updated versions over the years with new stars, and now it's this new one. But for whatever reason, like Ed Sheeran and other people are saying, you know, I don't know that this plays well in 2024 when we're, trying to raise money for starving people in Africa. And the title of the song is "Do They Know It's Christmas Time?" That it's coming at it from a very Christian perspective. But then Bob Geldof's like, this song has saved lives, so these people need to back off. And of course, I mean, you hear that song playing, you sing it, right, Jordy? Without a doubt, every time.
Well, sure, because the lyrics are ingrained in my head, but so is Milli Vanilli. So,
Yeah, it was good music, regardless of who's singing it.
uh,
Catchy.
kind of embarrassing if you know all the words to Blame It on the Rain. How do you know that, right? Like that, like why is that there? Um,
A
but
good song.
but
It was a good song. It's a nice chorus.
yeah, the
Yeah.
German guy and the guy who got paid to sing it did put together a good song for Rob and Fab,
Yes.
the lip sync. Uh, so so first of all, I'll prove to you that I'm a bigger fan of George Michael. So he had that song out the same year that he had his Christmas song out this Christmas, and he really wanted to have a number one song. And he got to do, so he had recorded this Christmas, and then this opportunity came up to do this other song. And so he did the whole, charity song with all the people involved. And he was like, damn it, I know this is going to be a big hit and it's going to overshadow this Christmas, and I'm not going to have my number one hit. And so he was like, happy but also reluctant to do it because he knew it was gonna take away from like this big hit that he planned to have. Um, and I would say that This Christmas is a better song than Do They Know It's Christmas. Uh, yeah. I
Okay,
just
well,
think
I've watched the One More Try video more than you. I'm certain of
um so I just think that Do They Know It's Christmas is just such a patronizing song. I know that it's for money and it's for charity, but so is that Sally Struthers, what was
it.
that?
The television ad?
The children's network or whatever it was, where, where essentially they create this like poverty porn, where they have like these children they've got like the extended bellies and they've got like flies flying around them, and they're objectifying them and showing them and encouraging this single narrative that Africa is one country, first of all, that's all poor and all desert and all mud huts, right? When it's 54 countries and a lot of wealth and a lot of economic stratification and a lot of cities and a lot of rural areas as well. So just like the Sally Struthers children's whatever, it kind of plays into that same, not kind of, it does, it plays into that same patronizing poor, sad savages. They don't even know that it's Christmas. Well, of course they don't know it's Christmas. I mean, not everybody knows it's Christmas. Christmas is a very specific holiday to a very specific part of the world. Holidays are geographically specific. Christmas isn't even Christmas. The idea that do they know it's Christmas isn't even Christmas. What we think of as Christmas with Christmas trees and Yuletide, whatever, and all the cold weather stuff. Come on. It doesn't say anywhere in the Bible when Jesus was born. A, does not. Definitely doesn't say December 25th because that didn't exist when he was born.
Mhm.
And he was born, his parents were going to vote in the Roman Empire, right? And so in the Roman Empire, you voted in spring. So he was most likely born in spring. The reason that Christmas is his birthday is because it was winter solstice. It's winter solstice. And so in Europe, in a place like Europe, where the winter is cold and it's really dark, and people are living in like, talk about living in mud huts, right? Living in these like freezing cold little one room wooden shacks that they would have built through the summer, or sorry, through the winter, eating like salted pork that they have saved up, like only enough rations to get them through to the spring. It's dark, it's cold, you have another 3 months of salted pork, people are going to start killing themselves. So what do? You have some kind of big celebration right in the middle of it. You have to have some kind of winter solstice. Hey, this is the shortest day of the year, but from here it's all going to stretch out. So let's drink a whole bunch. Let's light up the trees. We'll put some candles in the trees. We'll hang some stuff from the trees. It was a way of keeping peasants from just running off a cliff in the middle of dark, cold winters. So then uh, Europe becomes Christian, and you can't get rid of these old holidays because they're necessary for the geography, but you also can't have old pagan holidays that are worshiping sun gods, so you just need to make them Christian. So Jesus' birthday. So the idea that do they know it's Christmas? Like you don't even know it's Christmas because you know
Yeah.
that. So yeah, I find that song condescending, and sure it makes money, but can't we be more creative in the way that we make money for people? And also, um, why? Well, that's another thing.
Is there another way to look at it in that do they know it's Christmas time at all? Meaning, do they know? They don't know, and it's not important to them. It's insignificant to them. Like what we think is so important for a month is not important to other people in the world. And so maybe it's not singing it to them, maybe it's singing it to us. Like, hey, idiots in America, it's not Christmas to them, right? And so we need to pay attention to them and think about what they're experiencing, notwithstanding the stereotypes that it perpetuates that, all of Africa is one way. But maybe if you're talking to your privileged person in the US and say, they don't even know that that you celebrate Christmas. They don't even know that you overspend during Christmas and you think it's like so cool to walk around in your scarves when it's cold and rainy or in the snow. And they don't know that because they live a different life and a different experience. I mean, is there interpretation like that where you're actually singing it to the privileged people?
Um, I mean, so one saying like stop taking everything for granted. There's poor people in the world. Once again, is objectifying poor people, right? Like stop being such a spoiled brat and whining about how you didn't get the turkey drum or whatever turkey part of the turkey
Sean?
head. Uh, there's, girls getting their clitorises cut off right now. Um, you're still objectifying people. So to teach somebody else a lesson, I mean, it's true.
Yeah,
You should keep in mind that it's all relative, right? Like your concerns are all relative to other people in the world. But the lyrics of that song don't really suggest that it's trying to teach people here a lesson.
yeah,
The lyrics are like, bring peace and joy this Christmas to West Africa. And a song of hope that they'll have is being alive.
yeah.
Uh, yeah. So
How do you celebrate Christmas? Do you get a tree? What do you do? I know
no,
yeah.
no.
Is that
We,
because you're Jewish or is just you don't celebrate
it,
Christmas?
it's both.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah,
we talked about this. Never mind. I
yeah.
remember now. Bad Christmases. Okay, I got it.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, Yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah.
I tried.
Do you give gifts just like as,
Yeah.
close people in your life, holidays,
Yeah, for
box
sure.
of Seas candy, anything like that? Soft
Oh,
sticker. No.
yeah. Yeah. Hanukkah's all about socks. You give socks for Hanukkah.
Okay.
And I love socks. So, yeah.
You're
But
checking out the sock store.
yeah, but yeah, I still give gifts and everything, but no, uh no. I'm
So how do we address this? Because there's this whole controversy. Is it okay to listen to the song? Should we turn it off like it's, an R.
we
Kelly song? Like, no, we got, I mean, how do we deal with that if we hear it on the radio? Should we be embracing it?
Well, of course it's okay to listen to the song, It's like yeah, I had this whole issue with Michael Jackson. Like, is it okay to listen to Michael Jackson? Is it okay to listen to R. Kelly? Is it okay to listen to these people? And if you want to listen to the song, it's been around for 40 years. It's not you listening to it is not going to perpetuate any more of the objectification of poor, starving African children. You listening to it isn't going to do any more of that than it's already done,
Yeah.
right? It's like the argument that it again is kind of missing the point of, well, what should I do about it, right? Like, um, it's kind of the argument that people have around language, where they're like, well, I can't even say the N-word anymore. I can't even sing along with Biggie Smalls anymore in my car. It's like, I mean, you can, but do you want to? Like, knowing what you know about the world, do you feel good doing that, right? So, and you can do whatever you want, but knowing what you know, is it enjoyable to sing along? It's the same thing with that song, We Are the World, which I love because I'm a geographer and I love anything that's We Are the World, right? But
Yeah.
it's the same idea. It's a bunch of people who got together and objectified. That was USA aid to Africa, right? It was the same thing. It was objectification of Ethiopian children who were starving because of the famine in the 1980s. And I love that song still. Uh,
Has Bruce Springsteen in it. I
it
mean,
has everybody in it. It has every single person from the 80s in it. Like,
except for the person on your shirt.
oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
Because he's a tad askew. Is it true? He like, I'm not gonna do that with these people. Like I deserve my own song, or he doesn't want to share the stage with them. I
I
thought I
mean,
read something.
probably. Probably.
Because he's so snobby. He's like, I'm not gonna sing with you, Lewis, on the news.
Or, maybe I don't know. Who knows? Maybe that day he just needed an excuse to not come into work. So he's like, you know what, this is beneath me. Okay.
Madonna's not in it either.
Yeah, Madonna's not in it, but Dan Aykroyd is. So go figure.
Bruce Springsteen's the best there. Like that, those parts, it was that, and I think that was right after the Born in the USA stuff.
Yeah.
He was on a roll there. Do you have a favorite Christmas song?
Um, no.
Not even the Mariah Carey one?
Definitely not. I I
Feliz
like
Navidad, Jose Feliciano? No, not that one. This is
um
they're all getting worse, my suggestions now.
I mean I like the George Michael oh
Last
the John
Christmas.
Lennon song.
What?
John Lennon song. Uh that John Lennon song that he wrote when he was a solo artist.
That the Christmas is over or war is
Yeah,
over? Yeah. That's
war
all.
is over.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So this is Christmas. What have you done? Another year over, a new one just begun. That's more my speed.
Yeah. That's a good song. It's definitely a good song. Oh, so earlier were you talking about Last Christmas with George Michael?
Yeah, last Christmas
Oh,
I gave you my heart. What I call it?
I think you said like
Christmas?
one Christmas or this Christmas. You said
Yeah,
this Christmas. Oh, Last Christmas by far is so much better than Do They Know It's Christmas Time? Like, because
well,
that's like,
but it was number two to do they know it's Christmas? And he was super bummed about it because he like had to throw this song in front of his other song that he'd like come up with and was really proud of, and knew he would never reach number one with it again because it was, wasn't going to be new again. Yeah.
And then
Yeah,
he died on Christmas Day.
I know. Isn't that terrible? See, that's why I don't like Christmas.
you know.
Nothing good happens.
Well, we should probably wrap up, but I always enjoy having you on the show because you like raise the IQ points, like at least 25, 30 points for my normal guests. Because we're talking about um, do they know it's Christmas time? Are we all the world? And you can bring that world geography perspective, which is super important, and why your students like you so much. I'm sure. I think I'm going to have to reserve office hours with you because apparently popping in, it's like standing room only crowds.
Yeah, you have great guests though. Like you had David Moore on a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
Did you watch that one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I, yeah, I love him. He's getting more into politics. Do you think he's going to run for office?
I don't know. Like he said on the show that he has been sort of marginalized by some of the groups for his perspective. So I don't know that he has enough appeal because, not to get too much into this, but privately, people will say all sorts of things about their views on Gaza, like elected officials and public people. But then publicly, they're like,
Yeah.
and he is the opposite, right? He actually says what he thinks. And I think he's kind of
Publicly, he says a bunch, and privately, he's like,
he says it both publicly and privately. But so many people are so worried about what they say and what will be the political ramification. And he's not like that. He's consistent. He says it. He says how he feels. But yeah, no, I enjoyed that episode
yeah,
for sure. I learned a lot there, and I always love somebody who just is honest, just says exactly. You can always tell like they start looking up. They're thinking about what they're going to say. But okay, well, thanks a lot. I appreciate your time, and let's do it again soon.
all right, good. I'll talk to you later.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.